The conference room on the 47th floor of Sterling Tower gleamed with the kind of opulence that whispered rather than shouted wealth. Marcus Chen stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching the Manhattan skyline bleed orange and gold as the sun set behind glass and steel monuments to ambition. His reflection stared back at him, a 42-year-old black man in a perfectly tailored Tom Ford suit, the youngest CEO in Chen Technologies' 30-year history, worth $3 billion on paper, and exactly 4 hours away from securing the deal that would reshape the entire telecommunications industry. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. Now let us begin. Mr. Chen, the Whitmore family has arrived. His assistant Jennifer's voice crackled through his earpiece. They're being escorted to the diamond room now. Marcus adjusted his cufflinks, platinum with small sapphires, a gift from his late mother who'd worked 3 jobs to put him through MIT. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll be there in 5 minutes. The $100 billion merger between Chen Technologies and Whitmore Communications had been 18 months in the making. 18 months of negotiations, due diligence, legal reviews, and carefully orchestrated meetings. This dinner was meant to be a formality, a celebration before tomorrow's signing ceremony, where Marcus would become the CEO of the largest telecommunications empire in the Western Hemisphere. He'd built Chen Technologies from a small software startup in his garage to a powerhouse that held patents on technology every smartphone manufacturer in the world needed. The Whitmores had the infrastructure, towers, satellites, and legacy networks spanning 40 countries. Together, they would be unstoppable. Marcus gathered his leather portfolio and headed toward the private elevator. His phone buzzed with a text from his COO, David Park. Just heard the Whitmores brought extended family tonight. Heads up. This might be more social than we planned. More social? Marcus grimaced. He'd prepared for a business dinner with Richard Whitmore and his son Christopher. Extended family meant unpredictability, and Marcus Chen had built his empire on eliminating variables. The elevator descended 3 floors to the diamond room, an exclusive private dining space that cost $50,000 to reserve for the evening. As the doors opened, Marcus heard laughter, the kind of loud, careless laughter that comes from people who've never worried about being too visible, too loud, too much. He stepped into the foyer, and Jennifer met him with a concerned expression that immediately put him on alert. "What is it?" he asked quietly. "There are 12 of them," she whispered. "They brought champagne. They've been drinking since they arrived 20 minutes ago." Marcus felt the first flutter of unease in his chest, but pushed it down. "It's fine. Let's keep this cordial and brief." He walked through the mahogany doors into the diamond room, and the scene before him was not what he'd prepared for. The long table that had been set for an intimate dinner of 4 now accommodated a dozen people. Richard Whitmore, 73, silver-haired and red-faced, stood at the head holding a champagne flute. Christopher Whitmore, 45, was leaning back in his chair, already looking bored. But it was the others who caught Marcus's attention, women dripping in diamonds, younger men with the lazy confidence of inherited wealth, all of them studying him with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed amusement. "Ah, there he is," Richard boomed, his words slightly slurred. "The man of the hour. Come in, Marcus. Meet the family. After all, we're about to be in business together. Might as well know who you're climbing into bed with, eh?" The crude joke landed with appreciative laughter from the Whitmore clan. Marcus smiled professionally and stepped forward, extending his hand. "Richard, good to see you. I wasn't expecting such a full house tonight." Richard's handshake was too firm, too long, the grip of a man trying to establish dominance. "Well, when one is about to make $100 billion deal, one celebrates. Besides, they all wanted to meet you. You're quite the celebrity in certain circles." The way he said "certain circles" made Marcus's jaw tighten almost imperceptibly. What would you do if you walked into a room where you suddenly felt you didn't belong, even though you'd earned your place there? Drop your thoughts below. Marcus allowed himself to be led around the table. Richard introduced each family member with theatrical flair, clearly having been drinking for hours. My daughter Victoria and her husband Preston, Old Boston Money. Victoria offered a limp handshake. Preston just nodded. My younger son Edward and his fiancée Melissa. Edward looked uncomfortable. Melissa stared at Marcus like he was exotic. And my sisters Margaret and Louise. Christopher finally stood. Dad, let's eat. They sat, Marcus positioned in the middle, Whitmore's surrounding him. As oysters arrived, Richard tapped his glass. A toast to Marcus Chen, who's come so very far. The emphasis made Marcus's achievements sound surprising rather than earned. So Marcus, Victoria said, your mother was a seamstress, wasn't she? She was many things, Marcus replied evenly. A seamstress, bookkeeper, translator, and the smartest person I've ever known. How admirable, Margaret chimed in. Though I suppose it helps when you have those diversity initiatives. So many companies eager to invest in diverse founders these days. The implication hung in the air. Marcus kept his expression neutral. Jennifer appeared. Mr. Chen, urgent call from your COO. Marcus stepped out. David's voice came through concerned. How's it going? They're drunk and fishing, Marcus said quietly. Want me to come over? No, I've got this. It's never just dinner with families like that. Call me if you need an exit strategy. Marcus returned as Wagyu beef was served. The Whitmores discussed their various properties. We're selling the Aspen house, Louise said. Only 14,000 square feet seems wasteful. Christopher smiled predatorily. You should see Marcus's house. A brownstone in Brooklyn. 4,000 square feet. Quite modest. Brooklyn. Victoria's eyebrows rose. How charming. Very urban. I like Brooklyn, Marcus said. It's where I'm from. I could buy a mansion tomorrow, but I choose to stay connected to my roots. How noble. Preston spoke for the first time. Staying with your people. The word landed like a slap. Around the table, some looked uncomfortable, but Richard and Christopher watched with keen interest. This was a test. They were pushing, seeing if he'd lose composure. Marcus looked directly at Preston. Yes, I stay connected to my community. It reminds me why I work to create opportunities for others who've been told they don't belong in rooms like this. The silence was deafening. Richard cleared his throat, breaking the tension with forced laughter. Well, passionate. I like that. You'll need passion to run our combined empire, won't you? Our empire, Marcus noted quietly. Not yours. The merger creates a new entity with shared leadership. Of course, Richard waved dismissively. Though let's be honest about who's really bringing what to this table. Whitmore Communications has been in my family for 4 generations. We built the infrastructure that connects this country. Your patents are clever, Marcus, truly clever. But patents expire. Legacy doesn't. Christopher leaned forward. Father's right. We're giving you legitimacy, access to networks, relationships, old money connections. You bring some interesting technology, but let's not pretend this is an equal partnership. Marcus felt something cold settle in his chest. The valuation was equal, 50-50 split. That was agreed upon. On paper, Victoria interjected, but we all know how these things really work. You'll be the face, certainly. Very modern, very diverse, excellent for PR. But the real decisions? Those will be made by people who understand this industry, who've been in it for generations. Edward shifted uncomfortably. Victoria? That's not... Oh, don't be naive, Edward, she snapped. Mr. Chen is a businessman. He understands. This is about optics as much as operations, Margaret nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. Having you as CEO send such a wonderful message. We're very progressive, you see. We don't see color at all. Clearly, Marcus said, his voice dangerously quiet. Richard stood, swaying slightly. Marcus, let me tell you a story. My grandfather started Whitmore Communications with a telegraph office in 1924. One office. He built it through relationships, trust, breeding. The right schools, the right clubs, the right families. That's what creates empires that last. Not just being smart. Being smart is common. Being one of us, that's rare. And I'll never be one of you, Marcus stated flatly. That's what you're saying. Now, Richard wagged his finger. Don't be so sensitive. I'm simply saying that there's a natural order to things. You've done remarkably well for yourself. Remarkably well. But running a company worth $100 billion, that requires a certain pedigree. Christopher pulled out his phone. Actually, speaking of your remarkable rise, there's something we should discuss. He scrolled, then read aloud. Marcus Chen, accepted to MIT through their minority recruitment program. First venture funding from a diversity-focused VC fund. 3 of his 7 board members appointed through diversity mandates. Marcus's hands clenched under the table. Those are facts stripped of context. Are they, though? Christopher looked up. I'm not saying you're not intelligent. You clearly are. I'm saying you've had advantages, specific advantages, and perhaps you've risen faster than your actual capabilities warrant. The room spun. Marcus saw it clearly now. This wasn't a test. This was a power play. They'd never intended to treat him as an equal partner. They'd planned this, bringing the whole family to witness his humiliation, to put him in his place before the ink dried on the merger. Preston laughed. Honestly, Marcus, you should be grateful. We're offering you a seat at a table your mother couldn't have dreamed of. Show some grace. My mother, Marcus said, standing slowly, built her life from nothing in a country that tried to keep her invisible. She taught me my worth, and she taught me to recognize people who would never see it. Oh, here we go. Victoria rolled her eyes. The race card. No, Marcus said, his voice cutting through the room like a blade. The reality card. You brought me here to humiliate me, to make sure I understood that no matter what I've built, no matter what I've achieved, you'll always see me as less than, as someone who got lucky, someone who had help, someone who doesn't belong. Richard's face reddened. Now you listen here. No, Marcus interrupted. You listen. I came here tonight in good faith to finalize a partnership. What I found was a family so threatened by my success that you needed to tear me down to feel superior. You need me more than I need you. My patents, my technology, without them, Whitmore Communications will be obsolete in 5 years. But you can't stand that a black kid from Brooklyn holds your future in his hands. Christopher stood. You're being emotional, proving our point, actually. Marcus smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm being clear. This dinner is over. He turned to leave, and Richard's voice boomed behind him. Walk out that door, and the deal is dead. You hear me? Dead. Marcus paused at the threshold, turned back. The deal was dead the moment you decided to mock me instead of respect me. Consider the $100 billion merger cancelled. He walked out, leaving shocked silence behind him. Marcus's hands trembled as the elevator descended. The adrenaline that had fueled his exit was draining fast, replaced by the crushing weight of what he'd just done. $100 billion. Gone. 18 months of work. Destroyed in 20 minutes. His phone exploded with calls. David, Jennifer, his board members. He silenced them all. The lobby was mercifully empty. Marcus walked into the night air, and only then did he allow himself to breathe. His driver approached, but Marcus waved him off. I'll walk. Sir, it's 15 blocks. I'll walk. He needed to move, to think, to process. The streets of Manhattan blurred around him as his mind raced. What had he done? Chen Technologies' stock would plummet when news broke. His board would revolt, shareholders would sue, and for what? Pride, dignity. His phone buzzed insistently. Finally, he answered David's call. Please tell me you didn't just walk out on the Whitmores. David's voice was tight. I can't tell you that. Marcus, Jesus Christ, what happened? Marcus kept walking, his voice low. They didn't want a partner, David. They wanted a mascot, a diversity hire to parade around while they kept control. So you nuked a $100 billion deal? They nuked it when they decided to publicly humiliate me in front of their entire family. Silence. Then David sighed. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying the board will have your head on a platter by morning. Let them try. Marcus ended the call and kept walking. His mind was already shifting from emotion to strategy. The Whitmores thought they held all the cards because of their infrastructure, but infrastructure was becoming obsolete. His technology was the future. He just needed to prove it. By the time he reached his Brooklyn brownstone, a plan was forming. The next morning, Marcus entered Chen Technologies' headquarters to chaos. His assistant Jennifer met him at the elevator, her face pale. The board called an emergency meeting, 9 a.m. They're already in the conference room. Good, Marcus said calmly. Order breakfast for everyone. This might take a while. He walked into the conference room where 7 board members sat with expressions ranging from fury to concern. Margaret Cho, his lead investor, spoke first. Marcus, what the hell happened last night? Richard Whitmore is threatening to sue us for breach of contract. The stock is down 18%. We need answers. Marcus took his seat at the head of the table. The Whitmores revealed last night that they never intended to honor the partnership terms. They wanted a figurehead, not a co-leader. So, I ended negotiations. You don't have the authority to unilaterally, began Thomas Wright, the board's most conservative member. Actually, I do, Marcus interrupted. Check the merger agreement. Either CEO can withdraw with cause up until signing. I had cause. What cause? Margaret demanded. Because they hurt your feelings. Marcus's eyes hardened. Because they engaged in discriminatory practices that would expose this company to massive liability. I have witnesses. Jennifer, play the recording. Jennifer hesitated. Sir, you said you weren't recording. Play it. The room filled with audio from the dinner. Every subtle insult, every coded phrase, Preston's comment about your people, Victoria's dismissal of his achievements. When Christopher's voice detailed the diversity advantages, 2 board members visibly winced. The recording ended. Silence. That's a PR nightmare waiting to happen, said Patricia Okonkwo, the board member Marcus trusted most. If we'd merged with them, and this came out. Exactly, Marcus said. They showed me who they are. I believed them. Thomas wasn't convinced. So what's your plan? We just lost our biggest growth opportunity. Shareholders will demand your resignation. Marcus stood, walking to the window, overlooking the city. The Whitmores have infrastructure, but no innovation. They're dying and they know it. That's why they needed us. But we don't need them. We need access to their network, not their company. He turned back to the board. I'm going to build our own infrastructure. We have the capital. We have the technology. And now I'm going to show them what happens when you underestimate someone because of how they look. That will take years, Margaret protested. Billions of dollars. 3 years. And yes, billions. But we'll own it entirely. No partners. No compromises. David, who'd been sitting quietly, finally spoke. Marcus, I support you. But I need to ask, is this about business or is this about revenge? The question hung in the air. Marcus considered it honestly. It's about building something that can't be taken away or diminished because someone decides I don't belong. That's business and personal, but mostly it's about proving that merit wins. Eventually. The board debated for 3 hours. Finally, they voted. 5-2 in favor of Marcus's plan. He had his mandate, but barely. Over the next 6 weeks, Marcus worked 18-hour days. He restructured deals, courted new investors, and began acquiring smaller telecommunications companies. The business press dubbed it Chen's Gambit, either brilliant or suicidal, depending on who you asked. The Whitmores, meanwhile, went on the offensive. Richard gave interviews painting Marcus as unstable and emotional. Christopher leaked selective details about the failed merger, framing Chen Technologies as unreliable partners. The attacks stung, but Marcus channeled his anger into work. Until the evening, his head of PR, Sarah Chen, no relation, knocked on his office door with concern written across her face. We have a problem. A big one. She pulled up a news article on his screen. The headline read, Whitmore Communications acquires quantum networks in $8 billion deal pledges to make Chen Technologies obsolete. Marcus's blood ran cold. Quantum networks held patents that directly competed with his. If the Whitmores integrated that technology with their infrastructure, they're trying to cut us off at the knees, Sarah said quietly. Marcus read the article, his mind racing. In the accompanying photo, Richard Whitmore stood with his arm around a woman Marcus recognized, Dr. Aisha Johnson, former Chen Technologies researcher who'd left the company 6 months ago after a dispute over patent rights. He hired Aisha, Marcus breathed. She knows our entire development roadmap. His phone rang. Unknown number, he answered. Marcus Chen. This is Victoria Whitmore. I think it's time we had a conversation. Woman to man. Or should I say winner to loser? Have you ever had to choose between your pride and a strategic retreat? What would you do in Marcus's position? Share your thoughts below. Marcus met Victoria Whitmore 3 days later at a neutral location, a private room at the Harvard Club. She arrived in a crimson power suit, confidence radiating from every pore. Thank you for coming, she said, gesturing to the chair across from her. I wasn't sure you would. You said you had information I needed. Victoria smiled. Always direct. I appreciate that. She slid a folder across the table. This is what my family is planning, complete destruction of Chen Technologies. Aisha Johnson has given us everything, your development timeline, patent vulnerabilities, client lists. In 6 months, we'll launch a competing product at half your price. Marcus opened the folder. His worst fears confirmed in black and white. Why are you showing me this? Victoria's smile faded. Because I don't agree with what happened at that dinner. I didn't agree with my father's handling of the merger. And I certainly don't agree with Christopher's scorched earth approach now. You participated in the mockery. I did, to my shame. She met his eyes. I've spent my whole life performing for my family, saying what they expect, being who they need. But watching you walk out that night, watching you choose dignity over $100 billion, it woke something in me. Marcus studied her. What do you want, Victoria? I want to help you beat them, and I want you to help me escape them. Escape? She leaned forward. My father built that company, but he's losing his edge. Christopher is arrogant and reckless. They're making enemies across the industry. The Quantum Networks acquisition? They overpaid by $3 billion because Christopher wanted to hurt you specifically. That's not business. That's ego. And you're different. I'm smarter, she said simply. I've been CFO for 15 years. I know where every dollar is buried, every weakness in our infrastructure, every board member who's tired of my father's reign. I can give you the keys to destroying Whitmore Communications from the inside. Marcus sat back. In exchange for a position in your company. Not charity. I've earned my credentials. MIT like you, top of my class. I've managed a $50 billion portfolio. But I'll never run Whitmore because I'm a woman, and I'll never be free of my family because they see me as property. This could be a trap. It could be, Victoria acknowledged. But look at page 15. Marcus flipped to it, his breath caught. Detailed financial records showing Whitmore Communications was hemorrhaging money, propped up by creative accounting and shell companies. They weren't strong. They were desperate. That's why they needed your merger, Victoria continued. Without your technology, they're dead in 3 years. The infrastructure is aging. Competition from overseas is crushing them. My father won't admit it, but the company is dying. Why now? Why tell me this now? Victoria's mask cracked, showing vulnerability underneath. Because last night my father told me he's handing control to Christopher when this Chen problem is resolved. 25 years of my life, and I'm being passed over for my incompetent brother. I'm done being invisible. Marcus recognized the pain in her voice. Different circumstances, same story being overlooked, underestimated, dismissed. If I work with you, your family will destroy you. If you don't work with me, they'll destroy you, she countered. At least together we have a chance. Marcus's phone buzzed. David, emergency. Aisha filed patent challenges, 3 of our core technologies. He showed Victoria the message. She nodded grimly. That's page 22, Christopher's next move. They're invalidating your patents to clear the field for quantum. Marcus's mind raced through scenarios, possibilities, risks. Could he trust her? Did he have a choice? I need proof you're serious. Something I can verify. Victoria pulled out her phone, made a call. Eleanor, it's Victoria Whitmore. I need to arrange a meeting with Marcus Chen. Yes, that Marcus Chen. Tomorrow. Can you make it happen? Thank you. She hung up. Eleanor Yang, head of the FTC's Antitrust Division. She's been investigating Whitmore Communications for monopolistic practices. I've been her inside source for 18 months. She'll verify everything I've told you. Marcus stared at her. You've been planning this. I've been surviving. Now, I'm choosing to live. Victoria stood, extending her hand. So what do you say, Marcus? Do we take them down together? Marcus looked at her hand, a lifeline or a trap. He wasn't sure which, but he thought of his mother, who'd always said the enemy of my enemy might just be my salvation. He shook her hand. Together, the partnership with Victoria bore fruit quickly. Within 2 weeks, Marcus had filed counter-challenges to Aisha's patent claims. Armed with documentation, Victoria provided showing prior art and collaborative development. The FTC meeting confirmed everything Whitmore Communications was under federal investigation. But Christopher Whitmore was faster than Marcus anticipated. It started with a Wall Street Journal article. Chen Technologies CEO under investigation for corporate espionage. Anonymous sources claimed Marcus had stolen trade secrets from Whitmore Communications during merger negotiations. Then came the lawsuits, 3 simultaneously. Breach of contract, theft of intellectual property, tortious interference. Marcus's legal bills hit $7 million in the first month. Then the clients started leaving. Not all at once, that would have been easier to fight. Instead, a slow bleed. Contracts not renewed, projects delayed indefinitely. His CFO reported they'd lost 18% revenue in 6 weeks. The board called another emergency meeting. This time, the mood was different. We can't sustain this, Margaret said flatly. The Whitmores are using their connections to blacklist us across the industry. 3 major carriers cancelled orders yesterday. Thomas slammed a folder on the table. And our stock is down 42%. Investors are fleeing. Marcus, your vendetta is killing this company. It's not a vendetta. Then what is it? Thomas demanded. Because from where I sit, you torpedoed a good deal over hurt feelings, and now we're all paying for it. David jumped in. That's not fair. You heard the recording. I heard a dinner conversation that got uncomfortable, Thomas interrupted. I didn't hear anything worth destroying $100 billion opportunity. Marcus, the board is prepared to vote. Either you negotiate a settlement with Whitmore, or we remove you as CEO. The room went silent. Marcus looked around the table. Half wouldn't meet his eyes. Patricia spoke quietly. Marcus, I support you. I do, but we have 3,000 employees, their jobs, their families, we have to think about them too. I am thinking about them, Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. The vote was scheduled for the following week. That night, alone in his office, Marcus stared at the Brooklyn skyline. His phone showed messages he couldn't bring himself to answer. His head of security had informed him that protesters, organized by Whitmore-funded groups, had gathered outside his home. The narrative had shifted. He wasn't the victim anymore. He was the villain. Victoria called. Marcus, we need to meet. Now. They met at her apartment, a penthouse in Tribble. She looked terrible, exhausted, scared. Christopher knows I'm helping you. He hired investigators. They have photos of us meeting, phone records. He's convinced my father I'm a traitor. What does that mean? It means I'm out. They're removing me as CFO, contesting my trust fund. My father disowned me this morning. Her voice cracked. 25 years of my life, and he did it in a 30-second phone call. Marcus felt the weight of responsibility crush down. Victoria, I'm sorry. If I'd known... Don't, she cut him off. I made my choice, but Marcus, we're losing. They're too powerful, too connected. Every move we make, they're 3 steps ahead. His phone rang. David. Marcus answered on speaker. Marcus, I have bad news. The FTC investigation was dropped. Insufficient evidence. Eleanor Yang was reassigned to a field office in Montana. Someone got to them. Victoria closed her eyes. My family's reach. There's more, David continued. Jennifer gave her notice. Half the executive team is looking for other jobs. We're hemorrhaging talent. Marcus ended the call and sank onto Victoria's couch. Everything he'd built, 30 years of work, crumbling because he'd refused to be disrespected. Maybe Thomas is right, he said quietly. Maybe I should settle, save what's left. Victoria looked at him sharply. You don't mean that. 3,000 jobs, Victoria. Families depending on me. My mother didn't raise me to be selfish. Your mother didn't raise you to bow either. Maybe she should have, Marcus said bitterly. Maybe if I'd just smiled through that dinner, swallowed my pride, taken their deal, none of this would be happening. His phone buzzed with an email. The subject line made his blood freeze. Final offer, Richard Whitmore. He opened it. The message was brief. Marcus, you've fought well, but you've lost. I'm offering you one final option. Sell Chen Technologies to me for $2 billion, 20% of your actual value. Take the money, disappear, or I'll destroy every last piece of what you've built and leave you with nothing. You have 48 hours. Victoria read over his shoulder. He's giving you an exit. He's giving me humiliation, Marcus whispered. Everything my mother sacrificed. Everything I built gone for pennies on the dollar. What are you going to do? Marcus stared at the email, feeling more alone than he had since his mother died. I don't know. Marcus didn't sleep that night. He sat in his brownstone, surrounded by memories, photos of his mother at his MIT graduation, the framed first dollar from his first client, the patent certificates lining the walls. Each one a testament to a journey that seemed destined to end in failure. At 3 a.m., his doorbell rang. He checked the security camera and saw David standing in the rain, holding 2 coffees. Marcus opened the door. It's 3 in the morning. I know what time it is. David walked in, handed him coffee. I also know you're about to make the biggest mistake of your life. How? Because I know you. And I know that look. You're going to take Whitmore's offer. Marcus sank into his chair. What choice do I have? The board will vote me out anyway. At least this way, employees get severance, investors get something back. David sat across from him. Do you remember why we started this company? David. Freshman year at MIT. You were the only black student in our computer science program. Professor Davidson told you maybe you'd be more comfortable in a less technical major. You know what you told him? Marcus closed his eyes, remembering. You said, I'm not here to be comfortable. I'm here to be undeniable. David leaned forward. You've spent your whole life being undeniable, Marcus. Every obstacle, every person who doubted you, you proved them wrong. You're going to stop now. This is different. I have responsibilities. To what? To who? The board members who were ready to throw you out? Or to everyone who's watching this fight and seeing themselves in you? Marcus looked up. What do you mean? David pulled out his phone, scrolled through social media. You've been so buried in the fight, you haven't seen what's happening outside. Look, the screen showed thousands of posts. Numbers Stand with Chen trending. Op-eds from minority entrepreneurs about facing similar discrimination. Students sharing their own stories of being underestimated. Video messages from people Marcus had never met, saying his fight mattered. You think this is just about you? David asked. Every person who's ever been told they got where they are because of diversity initiatives is watching. Every person who's been the only one in the room who looks like them is watching. You fold now, you tell them the bigots win. Marcus felt something shift in his chest. We're still going to lose. The Whitmores have too much power. Maybe. But that patent challenge Aisha filed. I had our lawyers dig deeper. She made a mistake. 3 of her claims cite research she did while still under our employment contract. Anything she developed belongs to Chen Technologies, not her. Marcus sat up straighter. That invalidates her credibility. It does more than that. It opens Whitmore to countersuits for misappropriation. David grinned. Victoria was right about one thing: Christopher is arrogant and reckless. He didn't do his due diligence. Marcus's mind started racing again, but differently now, strategic instead of defeated. His phone rang. "Victoria," he answered. "Marcus, I found something. I've been going through my old files, and I discovered a memo from 5 years ago. My father knew about infrastructure vulnerabilities, but hid them from shareholders to keep stock prices up. If this gets out—" "Securities fraud," Marcus finished. "Victoria, that's enough to trigger a real investigation, one they can't bury. But Marcus, if I release this, I'm burning every bridge. My family will come after me with everything." "Don't do it," Marcus said. "You've already lost too much." Silence. Then Victoria laughed, but it was different, lighter. "You know what I realized tonight? I spent 25 years trying to earn my father's respect. I was never going to get it. Not because I wasn't good enough, but because he was never going to see me, just like they were never going to see you. So, what am I protecting? A family that doesn't want me? A legacy built on making people feel small? Victoria, I'm sending the memo to the SEC. And Marcus, fight. Don't you dare take that deal." She hung up. David stood. "So? What's it going to be?" Marcus looked at the email from Richard Whitmore, still open on his laptop. 48 hours to surrender. He thought of his mother, who'd faced down landlords, employers, and a system designed to keep her down. She'd never surrendered. Neither would he. Marcus opened his laptop and began typing a response to Richard Whitmore. Just 3 words: "See you in court." He hit send. The response was immediate and brutal. Within 12 hours, Richard Whitmore held a press conference announcing a total legal assault on Chen Technologies. Christopher stood beside him, smug and confident. But Marcus was ready. He held his own press conference that afternoon, with David and Patricia flanking him. The room was packed with journalists. "I've been accused of many things over the past months," Marcus began, his voice steady. "Being emotional, being ungrateful, being a diversity hire who got lucky. Today, I'm setting the record straight." He displayed the audio recording from the dinner. Every news outlet in the country played it within hours. The reaction was explosive. Social media erupted. Corporate sponsors began distancing themselves from Whitmore Communications. But Christopher countered quickly, calling the recording selectively edited and taken out of context. He deployed their media connections, and within a day, the narrative was muddy again. Then Victoria's memo hit the SEC. The investigation was announced on a Friday afternoon. Whitmore Communications stock plummeted 28% in an hour. Trading was halted. Richard Whitmore appeared on CNBC, visibly shaken, calling it a baseless attack orchestrated by a disgruntled former employee. Marcus watched from his office as David brought updates. 3 board members just resigned from Whitmore Communications. 2 major shareholders are demanding Richard step down. "And our situation?" David grinned. 4 clients who left last month just called. They want to come back. Apparently, standing up to bullies is good for business. The legal battle intensified. Depositions, motions, counter-motions. But Marcus noticed something shifting. Whitmore's lawyers were making mistakes, small ones at first, then larger. They were fighting on too many fronts: the SEC investigation, the patent disputes, the discrimination claims, and now a shareholder lawsuit. The turning point came during Christopher Whitmore's deposition. Marcus's attorney, a brilliant woman named Jennifer Kwan, methodically walked Christopher through his statements about the Quantum Networks acquisition. "You stated this acquisition was strategic and well-researched, correct?" "Yes," Christopher answered confidently. "Then why did you pay $3 billion over market value? We saw long-term potential. Or was it because you wanted to hurt Marcus Chen specifically?" Jennifer slid a document across the table. "This is an email you sent to your father. Please read the highlighted portion." Christopher's face paled. "I don't recall." We need to crush Chen, whatever the cost. Buy quantum, even if we overpay. I want him destroyed. Your words, Mr. Whitmore. The email proved what Victoria had said. Christopher's decisions were driven by ego, not business. Whitmore's board couldn't ignore it. 3 days later, they announced Christopher was taking a temporary leave of absence. Richard tried to hold the line, but the SEC investigation was gaining momentum. Former employees came forward with additional evidence of accounting fraud. The infrastructure vulnerabilities Victoria had mentioned were confirmed by independent engineers. Marcus watched the empire crumble from a distance, feeling no joy in it, only a grim satisfaction that the truth was finally surfacing. Then his phone rang. Unknown number. Marcus Chen. The voice was older, weaker than he remembered. Richard Whitmore. What do you want, Richard? To talk. No lawyers. Just you and me. 1 hour. The Harvard Club. Marcus almost refused. Then curiosity won. 1 hour. Tomorrow. Noon. Richard Whitmore looked like he'd aged a decade in 3 months. His silver hair seemed whiter, his face gaunt. He sat alone in the same private room where Marcus had met Victoria. Thank you for coming, Richard said quietly. Marcus sat but said nothing. I've lost my company, Richard continued. The board voted me out this morning. Christopher is facing criminal charges. My daughter won't return my calls. Everything I built is gone. You didn't lose it, Marcus said coldly. You destroyed it by being so obsessed with proving your superiority that you made catastrophically bad decisions. Richard looked at his hands. You're right, about all of it. That dinner I was drunk, yes, but that's no excuse. I said terrible things. Believed terrible things. He looked up. I was raised to believe that people like you didn't belong in rooms like that. That success was about breeding, not merit. I was wrong. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm 73 years old, and I'm going to die having destroyed the legacy my grandfather built. Not because of you. Because of my arrogance and my son's hatred. Richard's voice cracked. I wanted you to know that you were right to walk away. You have more integrity in your little finger than my whole family has combined. Marcus studied him. There was no manipulation here, no angle, just a broken old man confronting his failures. What do you want from me, Richard? Nothing. I have nothing left to offer. He paused. I wanted to apologize. To actually say I'm sorry for how I treated you, for what I cost you, for the pain I caused. Marcus sat back. Part of him wanted to leave, to let Richard sit with his regrets, but he thought of his mother, who'd always said that grace costs nothing and means everything. I accept your apology, Marcus said quietly. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger only hurts me. Richard nodded, tears in his eyes. Thank you. And Marcus, what you're building, the new infrastructure, the expansion, it's brilliant. You're going to change the industry. I wish I'd been smart enough to be your partner instead of your enemy. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Richard stood, extending his hand one final time. Marcus shook it not as equals, but as men who'd both learned expensive lessons. As Marcus left the Harvard Club, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Whitmore Communications files for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. David called immediately. Did you see? I saw. We won, Marcus. We actually won. Marcus looked at the Manhattan skyline, thinking about the cost of victory. The sleepless nights, the lost relationships, the constant stress, but also the allies he'd found, the principles he'd defended, the stand he'd taken. Yeah, he said finally. We won. What does real victory look like to you, crushing your enemies or staying true to your values? Drop your answer below. 6 months later, Marcus stood in a very different room, the newly opened Chen Technologies Innovation Center in Brooklyn, 3 blocks from the apartment where his mother had raised him. The space was filled with people, employees, investors, community members, students from local schools. But the person Marcus was most focused on was the young girl in the front row, her eyes wide with wonder as she looked at the technology displays. David approached, grinning. We're at capacity. Fire Marshal is getting nervous. Good problems to have, Marcus replied. The past 6 months had been transformative. With Whitmore Communications in bankruptcy, Marcus had acquired their most valuable infrastructure assets at auction for a fraction of what the merger would have cost. Chen Technologies was now the third largest telecommunications company in North America, and growing, but more importantly, Marcus had restructured how the company operated. 40% of leadership positions were now filled by women and people of color, not because of quotas, but because he'd actively recruited the brilliant people other companies overlooked. Victoria Whitmore was his chief strategy officer, her financial acumen helping Chen Technologies navigate rapid expansion. She'd legally changed her name to Victoria Chen, choosing her own family. "Ready?" she asked, appearing at his elbow. Marcus nodded and stepped to the podium. The room quieted. "Thank you all for coming. When my mother brought me to this neighborhood 40 years ago, she had 2 suitcases and a dream that her son might have opportunities she never did. She worked 3 jobs so I could focus on school. She sacrificed everything so I could be here today." He paused, emotion tightening his throat. "This center isn't just about technology, it's about access. Every young person in this community will have free access to our programs, our mentorship, our resources. Because I know there are brilliant minds in this neighborhood who just need someone to believe in them." The audience erupted in applause. Marcus saw teachers crying, parents nodding, kids literally jumping with excitement. After the ceremony, as the crowd mingled, the young girl from the front row approached shyly. Her mother stood behind her, encouraging. "Mr. Chen, I'm Destiny. I want to be an engineer like you." Marcus knelt down to her level. "That's a great dream, Destiny. You know what the most important thing is?" "What?" "Never let anyone tell you that you can't, not because of where you're from, what you look like, or who your family is. Your dreams are valid, your brilliance is real. Remember that, okay?" Destiny nodded solemnly, then surprised him with a hug before running back to her mother. Victoria watched the exchange with a soft smile. "You're good at this." "At what?" "Being the person you needed when you were young." Marcus stood, watching Destiny excitedly tell her mother about the computers she'd seen. "That's all any of us can do, right? Be what we needed. Build what was missing." His phone buzzed. A message from Patricia. "Board vote unanimous. Your contract extension approved. 5 more years as CEO." David joined them, champagne in hand. "To surviving?" Marcus took a glass, considered. "To thriving." They toasted as the Brooklyn sun set through the windows, casting gold across the Innovation Center. That night, alone in his office, Marcus opened his laptop to an email from an unexpected source, Edward Whitmore, Richard's younger son. "Mr. Chen, you don't know me well. I was at that dinner, and I said nothing when I should have spoken up. I've thought about that every day since. I wanted you to know that my father passed away last week, peacefully. But before he died, he asked me to give you something." Attached was a scanned letter in shaky handwriting. "Marcus, true legacy isn't what you build, it's who you become while building it. You showed me that too late for my own redemption, but not too late for me to recognize greatness when I see it. You won not because you destroyed me, but because you never became me. That's the victory that matters. Richard." Marcus read it twice, then filed it away. Some victories were hollow, others were hard-won. The best ones were the kind where you looked in the mirror and still recognized yourself. He turned off his office lights and headed home to Brooklyn, to the brownstone where he'd chosen to stay, to the neighborhood that raised him, to the life he'd built on his own terms. The skyline glittered with promise. Tomorrow he'd start again. Tomorrow there would be new challenges, new battles, new obstacles. But tonight, Marcus Chen, the kid from Brooklyn whose mother cleaned houses so he could dream, was exactly where he belonged. Undeniable. The end. If you could tell your younger self one thing about staying true to who you are, what would it be? Share your story in the comments. Your words might inspire someone who needs to hear them today. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine, so do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.